Today, we're going to unpack one of the most fundamental parts of a physical, the neurological exam. It might look like just a simple series of taps and pokes, but it's actually this really deep and informative conversation with your body's most complex network. So let's get into it. We've all seen this, right? The classic image of a reflex hammer tapping a knee. But what is really going on here? I promise you, it's not just a party trick. It's a super sophisticated investigation. It's a way for a clinician to listen to the whispers of your nervous system, from your brain all the way down to your fingertips and toes. All right, so to really unpack all this, we're going to follow the clinician's playbook. First, we'll go over the basic rules of this conversation. Then, we'll dive into how they assess the body's power grid and its communication lines. After that, we'll check in with the control center for balance, test out those hardwired reflex shortcuts, and finally, we'll see what happens when the stakes get really high. Okay, before any test even starts, you gotta set a few ground rules. The whole thing only works on a patient who is conscious and cooperative. And for any of the sensory tests, your eyes have to be closed. That's key, because it gets rid of any visual clues and really isolates the sense of touch. The entire process is systematic and it's symmetrical, so they'll test one side of your body and then immediately test the exact same spot on the other side to compare notes. First up is the motor system. The best way to think about this is like checking the body's entire power grid. Your brain sends signals down through the spinal cord to your muscles, and this part of the exam is all about seeing how well that grid is working. We're looking at everything from muscle strength to size and even a tension in your muscles when they're just relaxed. And you'd be surprised how much they're looking for here. A clinician isn't just checking for raw strength. Nope. They're observing your posture, they're watching for any little involuntary movements like a tremor, they're looking at your muscle bulk to make sure it's symmetrical, feeling for muscle tone, and then testing your strength against the resistance. Every single observation is another clue. And this is where things get really specific. When a doctor says, "squeeze my fingers," they're not just seeing if you have a strong grip, they're directly testing the function of the C7, C8, and T1 nerves. And when they ask you to raise your leg against their hand, that's a direct line to the L2, L3, and L4 nerves. Every simple action you do is mapped to very specific nerve roots. It's amazing. Okay, so let's see how this all builds. If the motor system is the power grid sending signals out from the brain, then the sensory system is the network of communication lines sending information back to the brain. This is all about how we perceive the world, through touch, temperature, and pain. Our body basically has two major sensory superhighways. First, there's the posterior column tract. This one handles all the detailed, high-fidelity information, things like vibration, your sense of where your body is in space, and that really fine, detailed sense of touch. Then you have the spinal thalamic tract. This one carries the more urgent, fundamental signals: pain, temperature, and just crude touch. They work side by side, but testing them tells us very different things.
So how do we test that more refined sense of touch? Well, one of the coolest tests is for something called stereognosis. It's basically your brain's ability to take raw sensory data from your hand and build a 3D image of a familiar object, all without even peeking. And here's exactly what that looks like. With your eyes closed, a common object, like a key or maybe a coin, is placed in your hand. If you can feel it and say, "Yep, that's a key," it shows that the entire pathway, from the nerves in your fingers all the way up the spinal cord to the processing centers in your brain, is working perfectly.
And if we want to take it a step further, there is graphesthesia. Now, this one is even more abstract. The question is, can your brain interpret a shape like a number or a letter that's just being traced on your skin? It's a fantastic test of higher-level sensory processing. I mean, it's one thing to feel a key. It's another thing entirely to recognize the abstract idea of the number 8 from touch alone. Okay, next up, we check in with the brain's master control center for movement, the cerebellum. Now, this part of the brain doesn't actually create movement, but it refines it. It makes sure our actions are smooth, coordinated, and balanced. It's really the difference between walking gracefully and, well, staggering around. So how do you test this? With some really simple tasks that demand precision and rhythm. You've got the classic finger-to-nose test, which checks for accuracy. Running your heel down the opposite shin tests coordination in your lower body, and rapidly flipping your hands over on your knees. That tests the cerebellum's ability to handle quick back-and-forth actions. And then, of course, there's balance. The Romberg test is so simple but so powerful. You stand with your feet together, first with your eyes open and then with them closed. See, with your eyes open, you're using vision, your inner ear, and your body position sense to stay upright. but the second you close your eyes, you take vision out of the equation. If you start to sway or lose your balance, it might suggest a problem with your sense of body position, a key piece of information the cerebellum absolutely relies on. So now we come full circle, back to that little hammer. Reflexes are the nervous system's hardwired shortcuts. They're totally involuntary responses that actually bypass the conscious part of your brain. They give you an instant, unfiltered look at the health of a complete neural circuit, from the sensory nerve, across a little gap in the spinal cord, and right back out through a motor nerve to the muscle. It's a perfect little loop. And the response, that little kick, isn't just a yes or no thing. It's actually graded on a simple scale from 0, which means no response at all the way up to a 4+, which would be a super hyperactive, exaggerated response. A grade of 2+ is considered perfectly normal. The grade itself, and whether it's the same on both sides of the body, gives doctors critical diagnostic clues. So what happens if a reflex is kind of hard to find? There's this fascinating trick called reinforcement. By asking you to do a strong muscle contraction somewhere else, like clenching your teeth really hard or locking your fingers and pulling them apart, you can actually increase the overall excitability of your entire nervous system, and that can make a really faint reflex suddenly pop. It's like turning up the volume to hear a quiet signal. And here we see it, the most famous reflex of all, the patellar or knee-jerk reflex. A quick, brisk tap on the tendon right below the kneecap should cause that big quadriceps muscle to contract, kicking your lower leg forward. A normal kick right here tells the clinician that the L2, L3, and L4 nerve pathways are all in good working order. Finally, we get to the times when the exam needs to check for something a lot more serious. If a clinician suspects there's an infection or inflammation of the meninges, those are the protective layers covering your brain and spinal cord, they turn to a special set of tests. And this is really when the neurological exam becomes an absolutely critical tool for spotting a medical emergency. See, irritation of the meninges, like you'd get from meningitis, can cause these telltale signs of muscle stiffness and pain that these specific tests are designed to bring out. There are 2 key signs to look for here. For Brudzinski's sign, the doctor gently flexes the patient's neck forward. A positive sign is when the patient's hips and knees automatically bend up to relieve that tension. Then for Koenig's sign, the hip and knee are bent up, and then the doctor tries to straighten the knee out. If that causes pain and resistance, that's also a positive sign. Both are major red flags for meningeal irritation. And that's really what this is all about, isn't it? This whole thing is not just some random collection of tests. From motor strength to fine touch discrimination, from balance to reflexes, each component builds on the last. It's a systematic process that pieces together a really detailed story about the health of your entire nervous system. And that, to me, is maybe the most remarkable part. In an age of MRI machines and all this high-tech imaging, this fundamentally hands-on, low-tech exam is still one of the most powerful tools in medicine. It's a direct conversation, and if you just know the language, the nerves have an absolutely fascinating story to tell.